I'm bored. Let's see how many lies and bad faith comments Jesterbell is going to make in this video. Okay, so real talk, I wasn't going to watch another Jesterbell video this week, but so many people sent me this video specifically, and they're like, you're not going to believe what she says in this, and it's such a bad video. Listen, guys, every video that Jesterbell makes, in my opinion, is a bad video. So telling me that Jesterbell has made a bad video is like telling me that energy drinks have caffeine in them. Like, it's literally, that's just what it is, right? However, I looked at the title to this one, like before I turned on everything tonight, and it says superhero movies are dead. And I can distinctly remember in the last video that I watched of hers, she claimed in that title that superhero movies were dead, but then also admitted that Spider-Man was going to make a bunch of money. So I don't know what this is all about. I mean, she's exhausted me. She broke me in the last video. However, if this is going to be a good old-fashioned debunking, this is going to be a lot of fun for me. If there's stuff in here that I can literally debunk and she's not just saying random things. Anyway, let's get to the video.
Hi everyone, Female Frodo Baggins here, and I know that I've been doing videos exclusively about superheroes lately, but I just have a lot to say about—
I mean, isn't that your channel? We're like me saying, hi, Eric here, I'm doing a commentary video. I mean, like literally that's your channel, is like superhero content. So I don't know what else you'd be doing, but okay.
the subject still, because I think we're at the moment where it's at an end, and so I just have some things to say in closing of it for now.
I mean, is this a eulogy for are we at the funeral for superhero movies? Is eulogy, and we're saying goodbye? So it's just so somber here at the beginning of her videos. She's so sad, everyone.
Videos about Marvel and just reminding them, the audience, that they've lost. And I did a video the last time about Fantastic Four, and that—
yeah, they were both bad videos. Like Marvel, if you're listening to me, we're gonna play this game. Marvel, if you're listening to me, don't listen to her. Okay, if you're paying attention to anybody on YouTube and you stumble across my video, do not listen to her. Take my advice instead. My advice is just keep doing what you're doing, because the last couple movies you put out have been really good, regardless of what the box office has been on them. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't listen to Jesterbell. She's not even a real comic book fan, in my opinion.
At the box office, but I haven't really done a comprehensive video on the superhero genre. And
comprehensive. So comprehensive, for everybody out there, comprehensive is when you cover everything, all of it. She's not done a comprehensive video on the superhero genre. So if we're talking about in modern times, we would go back to, like, say, the era of like the phase 1 MCU or like the Dark Knight or whatever. But if she says comprehensive, to me, that means all of it. So are we going all the way back to like the 80s, the 70s, the 60s? Are we going that far back? Or is it just going to be a few random things here and there? I guess we'll have to find out together, because to me, comprehensive means massive list. And this is one of her shorter videos. It's like less than 20 minutes. So I don't feel like this is going to be I don't think the word comprehensive is going to apply, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
How it is, in fact, dead at the box office. And some people still really aren't admitting that. Now, here's the thing.
Some people aren't so, wait a minute. So we have Superman at the box office that is doing really well, better than what the studio executives wanted it to do. Fantastic Four is still in theaters. So it's literally the second week, still in theaters. It could run for a month and end up making over 500 million. We don't know. We have no idea. But you're already dismissing both of those and saying that you're invalidating fans who are like, no, this looks good to us. We're enjoying these films. Like you're talking about it like the financial stuff is stuff that we should be focused on, and it's not. I just want to enjoy the movies that I go to. And I'm pretty sure all you guys out there in the comment section and stuff, most of you, I'm not going to say all of you because I don't know for sure, but I think most of you agree with me that you are more worried about whether or not you like a movie. Like if you want to go and watch a movie over and over again, if you want to buy it, you want to purchase it, you want to get it on Blu-ray or whatever. I think the only thing that factors in that is whether or not you like it. Like, it's not about how much it makes. I think most people would agree with that. It's your community that is obsessed with box office numbers in a way that somehow, even if you like a movie, the box office numbers to you defines the art. That's your community, but you're trying to gaslight us into believing that all of this stuff is bad and that we're all wrong about it and that we're just denying reality based on box office numbers, which, by the way, don't even reflect what she's saying. Like, what the stuff she's been saying over the last few videos that I've watched, it doesn't even really reflect that. There's examples of movies in the last 5 years that have done really well. And it's not been a consistent up. It's been an up and down, which means if something is dead, it would be a flat line. It's not been a flat line. Even the stuff that's underperformed has not been a flat line. Anyway, let's go on.
I feel that I've been gaslighted about the Superman movie.
You feel like you've been gaslighted? You just gaslit us. You just before you said this right now, you literally gaslit us. Fam, what are we doing here? You literally just said, you told us that we were delusional and denying reality because we're not ready to admit that superhero movies are dead. And then your next line is that you've been gaslit about Superman. How so? Hold on. I got to run that back in real time. I'm running this back. I jumped back like 10 seconds or so to listen to this. What is happening?
I did a video the last time about Fantastic Four and that bombing at the box office.
Hasn't bombed yet. Still in theaters. Let's continue.
But I haven't really done a comprehensive video on the superhero genre and how it is, in fact, dead at the box office.
In fact. So she's saying, in fact. So in reality, no, there's no other direction. There's one path. It is dead. This is the only path you can take. You cannot choose. It's not a choose your own adventure shit. It's not what it is. She's saying it is a fact. So we, people that are like, no, these are good films, we're enjoying them, we are denying reality because the film's quality is dependent on the overall gross numbers at the box office. That's the only metric. Let's continue.
And some people still really aren't admitting that. Now, here's the thing. I feel that I've been gaslighted about the Superman movie. I understand that there are people out there who really, really like it, but I really feel that I've been gaslighted about just how well it's doing at the box office. If the numbers are factual, how could it be gaslighting you on how well it's doing when the numbers are literally the numbers? And people really celebrating it beyond what the actual reality is.
Well, the reality is it is the first DCU movie on the back of a failed franchise with a string of movies that did not do well in the box office. People should be celebrating that. We should be happy about that because it means that DC now has an opportunity to do some movies that maybe we wouldn't have had during the DCEU. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to see some characters we wouldn't have seen otherwise. You have an issue with everything. So I don't think they could have done anything to change your mind based on what I've seen of your content. There's nothing, because you're not picking out stuff you like and dislike as a generality. You literally have a narrative that you're trying to push out to everybody. That's very obvious in your content. So the fans that want more content, the fans that want to see more things from these universes are happy that a movie that had everything going against it, regardless of what you guys think about Superman being this big powerhouse character and that it was always a surefire hit. It was not. It was not guaranteed to be a hit. There was no reality where James Gunn's Superman was guaranteed to be a hit. Matter of fact, a lot of people like yourself were trying to go against it really hard before it went out and did as well as it's doing now. So we're not going to do revisionist history over here. I don't play that game. You have never actually corrected your stances on movies like Superman and Fantastic Four because you won't even take responsibility for the stuff you said about it. So acting weird about the fact that the studio said multiple times that anything over 700, actually James Gunn even debunked it on social media. He laughed at the $700 million number, saying that it had to make that much, had to make $1 billion, whatever. Like the studio was happy with anything over 500 million. So unless you're saying that all the people that work at the company are lying about that every single person connected to the project is lying about that somehow the quality of the movie doesn't matter and it's all about the money. Unless you can prove those things, then this is not a true comprehensive list looking at reality. You cannot tell us in the beginning of your video that we are in denial about the success of superhero movies based on the fact that they are financially underperforming, and then go on to say that you're being gaslit while a movie that is performing well in the box office is performing well in the box office. And that now you believe that regardless of that number, you don't believe it. This is literally bullshit. It's literally bullshit. Whatever your metric or your standard is, it has to be consistent, because you're talking about consistency. Whatever your standard is, it has to be consistent. The minute you go, well, yeah, the movie's doing better than they said it was doing, but the numbers aren't, it doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter. I just feel like they're lying. Feelings are not facts. They're not. And when you're using numbers as a metric, there are no feelings involved. They're literally numbers. Let's continue.
Superman is currently at $551 million worldwide. And since there's really no competition for the coming months and weeks, it might be able to get to 600 million. That's still going to be less than Man of Steel, which came out in 2013. And that's not even adjusting for inflation.
The adjusting for inflation argument. I love this dumbass argument. We're going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to actually do the math on that one, and I'll tell you guys what the deal is with that. But outside of that, Man of Steel was released at a period of time when DC had a very, very successful Batman trilogy, right? Man of Steel was on the back of a successful Batman trilogy where DC was still being looked at in like the same lens as Marvel at that period in time because of the Nolan Batman films, right? So it came out without any of that baggage behind it. There is context to this. When Superman 2025 came out, it was on the back of multiple failed DC projects that were connected to a shared universe. We're in two different environments, two different places in time. To ignore that context, cherry pick, anecdotal stuff, this is not comprehensive. That's not comprehensive. You're comparing straight one-to-one, but you're ignoring any context in the scenario we're in right now. James Gunn was canceled, socially canceled, fired from Marvel, rehired to Marvel with a bunch of stuff going against him. There's still a ton of people out there that do not like James Gunn. There's a bunch of Snyder people out there that do not like James Gunn. And they have led campaign after campaign after campaign against James Gunn. Now, I'm not here defending James Gunn. I don't have a dog in that fight. It's not on me. But James Gunn had to fight back against that system in order to make a successful movie. So he was fighting back against a chunk of really loud Snyder fans, the baggage of the DCEU, retaining some of the stuff from the DCEU. We've had characters that are still being retained from the DCEU, having to deal with people that were mad that he wasn't keeping like Gal Gadot. He wasn't keeping Jason Momoa as Aquaman. He wasn't keeping Henry Cavill as Superman. He wasn't keeping Ben Affleck as Batman. All these people mad about that. He came out, he did a movie, and the fact that the movie is actually as successful as it is deserves to be celebrated. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about this adjusted for inflation stuff, because you guys love to say this, right? You're like, oh, well, the box office totals adjusted for inflation equal XYZ. That is a fallacy. It's not a true argument, okay? It's not a true argument. Unless you go into the specifics of the numbers, all of that, right? It is a false equivalency fallacy. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to adjust all of the numbers of Man of Steel for inflation and show you how much money that movie actually made, because that is the money that matters. What it's made at the end of the day for the studio versus all of the other expenses. And since Man of Steel is such an old movie, in contrast, a lot of that information is publicly available. We don't know a ton of that for Superman 2025, and we won't for a while probably. But let's adjust all of that for inflation and look at how much money Man of Steel actually made for Warner Brothers back in that time period. All right, so looking over here at the graph, the production budget for Man of Steel 2013 was $225 million. Adjusted for inflation, it's $310.5 million. The marketing estimate back then was $100 million. It would be adjusted for inflation, was $138 million. The total studio cost on Man of Steel would have been $325 million. Back then, adjusted for inflation, it would have been $448.5 million in today's dollars. That's the production budget for Man of Steel, if you adjust that for inflation. If we go all the way down to the bottom here, we talk about the total revenue for Man of Steel after everything. This includes promotional tie-ins, home video revenue that we know of. You take all that into account. It made a total net profit here. This comes from Deadline. It would have made $59 million in profit. $59 million in profit after it's all said and done. Everything that studio put into that movie. Back then, it made $42.7 million in profit, because return on investment is the only thing that matters. And the return on investment for Man of Steel was 13.1%. That is your comparison there. which means when we get done with the full run of Superman 2025, which we're still not done with it yet, we will have to look at what the percentage return on investment that was for that movie. We're not even looking into whether or not Man of Steel paid for tons of advertising, any kind of big budget stuff that went into it, all of those things. Literally, the ROI on Man of Steel was 13.1%. And we know that. That's been confirmed. So when Superman is done in 2025, we'll have to look at the ROI and see what the return on investment is for Superman. Now, I'm not an analyst. I just do the digging for this information. But it's fucked up. Let me tell you why this is fucked up. It's fucked up that you get on here and you call this video a comprehensive guide and you want to use an example and throw out the term adjusted for inflation, and then you don't even bother to explain to your fucking viewers what return on investment is. You don't even know that. You're not even talking about that. That's what I'm talking about. It means you heard someone or you read something online that said that, and in your brain it goes, yeah, that makes sense. The box office numbers aren't adjusted for inflation yet, so that means it's going to be different. Guess what? This movie will also get adjusted for inflation every single year after this. That's a false equivalency argument, and the worst part is you don't even explain what it is to the people watching your video. Negligent doesn't even really begin to explain this. It doesn't even begin to explain this.
But here's the deal with it. I want to compare what superhero movies are doing this year compared to the years prior, because this is the big question.
Well, you would, if you're doing a comprehensive list, you would start further back. You would go back, like if you're doing the MCU, you would start at the beginning of the MCU. If this is a comprehensive MCU list, you would start at the beginning of the MCU. That's where you would start. You wouldn't cherry pick years. You would start where the actual franchise started.
Genre dead. Well, let's look in 2017.
Why an arbitrary year? This is a prime example of bad faith, right? If you're doing a comprehensive review on anything at all, let's talk about movies. You're doing a comprehensive list on movies, right? And you solely focus on Marvel and DC when you say superhero movies, and you ignore all the other superhero movies that have come out. It's not comprehensive. If you cherry pick movies, use anecdotal stuff and things like that, that's not comprehensive. If you don't have historical context, box office trends, industry factors, competition, counter examples in each and every one of your claims, that is not comprehensive. It's not. And I don't care if you want to make this video and act like, oh, I'm doing something big and I just want to talk shit or whatever, but using the term comprehensive and then leaving all of that out, we jump from 2025 to 2017 for no reason at all. And when you do that, you're going to have to pick a random movie from 2017. And what does that have to do with anything that is being talked about in this video? You say superhero movies are dead. You should be going back as far as you can, grabbing as many numbers as you can to prove your point. Jumping to 2017 arbitrarily after saying adjusted for inflation is dumb shit. It's dumb shit.
In 2017, the lowest grossing superhero film was Justice League, which made $661 million and was considered a massive flop. Now, obviously, that's relative to the budget here. But how is it that Superman is making less than Justice League in 2017, which was considered one of the biggest superhero bombs of the era, but it's considered this massive success?
Why that movie? Why are you picking that? This is again, false equivalency. Why that movie specifically? There's a lot of other movies that bombed. In order for this to work, for you to compare this and go, yeah, this makes sense, is you'd have to provide the ROI, the return on, how much did they actually make at the end of the day with that film? I'm going to look up the ROI on 2017 Justice League theatrical release to see what it was compared to, I guess, Man of Steel, because we just talked about it. Because I'm doing the hard work for you, because you're so lazy, the ROI on Justice League was at the very least -8%. They lost money on Justice League based on all the numbers that are publicly available, broken down by sources like Box Office Mojo and Deadline. They lost at least -8%, up to 17% on 2017's Justice League. That's why it was a bomb. That's why it didn't make money for the studio. You don't have ROI on the current Superman film. The studios have that information, which means if they tell you that they're happy with the number until later on, when we have as much information as we can possibly have, like we do for like a 2013 or a 2017 movie, we don't know for sure because ROI is the only fucking thing the studios care about. All the other money doesn't matter. How much money are they getting at the end of the day off of the film's ROI? And then how much money are they making off of all the other outside deals from these films? Toys, t-shirts, cartoons, spin-offs. What are they making off of all these things? All of this factors into the success of a movie. When you have a film that's already in the negative at 8%, upwards of maybe 17% negative ROI, that is definitely not good. And it took me, I literally paused the video and it took me like 5 seconds to get this information. All I did was cross-reference the information online. That was it. And then I went to a couple websites to double check it. That's all I did. I seriously don't know how you can run a channel like this and do stuff like this and people listen to you. I don't know.
And let's look at some other years, shall we? 2014. Now, 2014 was a crazy year for superhero films, which we'll talk about. But look, of all the 4 superhero films released in that year, they all made over $700 million.
Okay.
Compare that to this year, where movies are lucky if they get $600 million from that. That used to be considered the low point. Like movies.
Okay, so now we're just doing a broad stroke, right? We're just randomly picking a year and saying this is how much movies we're making, and so we're comparing to this year. So let's take a look at the economy in that year versus the economy in this year, because that's how you would determine what kind of money people might have to spend on movies. How much did tickets cost in 2014 compared to now? Because minimum wage hasn't gone up drastically since 2014, but the cost of living has gone up, which means people have a lot less money to spend on things like that. So that's another big factor. So let me just do some quick math over here on the side, and I'll have those numbers for you guys in a second because she's not going to provide them for you. All right, so the average ticket price in 2014 was $8.17. Now that was considered high at that time. Okay, that was the average in the United States. Now, I can't say yours might be a little bit more where you lived or it might be a little bit less, but the average ticket price with the major chains was $8.17 in 2014. You know how much it is in 2025? $11.31. So it's gone up quite a bit since 2014 to 2025. Let's take a look. I actually wrote the numbers down over here too as well. Let's look at the difference in the economy back then, the cost of living. So the cost of living between 2014 and 2025 has been 35.8%. And wages have not increased, which means that the cost of living has gone up. And we've seen this affect other forms of entertainment. Consumers have cut back significantly on one-off expenses. What are one-off expenses? Movie tickets, concert tickets, casual video game purchases, going out to dinner. Those types of things end up getting cut back when people have less money. So all of these are factors into why people are not going out and spending as much money on movies. And since we have other things to talk about, like COVID, pandemic, the way culture's changed, those are going to factor in. I'll save that for later, but you're talking specifically about the year 2014 and now. So I wanted to debunk that while we were on that topic, because I have a feeling in this 18 minutes, it's going to be a lot of this stuff. And I have a good time looking up this information and completely crushing every single statement that you make in this video, because I'm so fucking tired of channels like this that do this kind of content. The laziest fucking type of content. No actual information, a bunch of buzzwords and vibe shit with no actual information. It's so fucking frustrating. Stop making videos. If this is the kind of stuff you're going to do, stop making videos. You're not contributing anything of value to the site, to the community by doing this. Nothing of value. Provide information with your content. Provide facts with it. If you're going to say comprehensive and you're going to act like you're doing something, then fucking do it. This fake it till you make it shit is so transparent.
Like for the Dark World or the Ant-Man movies, or yes, once again, Justice League, if they were in the $600 million range, they were considered disappointments for what the superhero genre was getting back in the day. Back in the day, 2014, $700 million for each movie. 2017, over $700 million for each movie again.
What is the ROI? How much did they make back on each one of those movies?
Marvel got over $700 million for each movie. And Justice League, which was the outlier, was considered the failure. Wonder Woman got to about over $800 million for that movie. So then you compare it to this year, and it's like Captain America: Brave New World over 400 million, Thunderbolts not even 400 million, Fantastic Four might get to 500 million, but it looks like it might not. It dropped 67%. So
the thing is that, like, you're still going on and on about this, and I've already debunked all of this. None of this matters if you don't zoom out and look at the other factors. None of this matters. There are other factors at play here. I could even go back to 2017 and look at the average ticket cost versus now, the cost of living till now, but it doesn't matter. Like, the fact is, the cost of living has gone up substantially and wages have not. People don't have extra money anymore. The country is in a situation where people are losing jobs left and right. Like, there's a lot of factors at play here. There's a lot of fucking factors going on.
And not 66%. So almost a 70% drop. I don't even think it's going to break even. And then Superman, the highest.
But you don't know what the break even point even is. And break even doesn't matter. ROI matters. ROI, return on investment. At least start using the correct terminology. Break even does not define success. ROI does. Even if the movie breaks even, that does not mean it's going to reach ROI that's suitable for the studios. So that's not even a metric of like success. It's not even a metric of success for the studios.
Grossing of those movies, currently under 600 million, lucky to get 600 million Justice League numbers. And that isn't even, once again, adjusting for inflation. I saw one person claim that Fantastic Four is actually doing as well as the 2005 version if you adjust for inflation. So it's clearly a different time.
But are you going to give any more information than that? Are you going to give any more information, or is that it? You heard someone say that? I'm not doing the math for that one. I'm just going to assume that you don't know. I'm not even going to do it. I'm not going to waste my time.
The thing that's happening with Superman is that there's ways that you can spin it as this success. It's still the highest grossing DC film since the Batman, which just goes to say how bad DC as a brand has been.
Which is why the movie had an uphill battle. Okay.
It did really well domestically because it had really good domestic holds. So never mind that it completely collapsed internationally. But you see, there's ways that you can.
And this whole international argument right now, overall, matter of fact, I'm going to look it up because she's not going to do it. You are really making me work hard on this video, and that's fine because I love proving you wrong. But I'm just going to look up this information because I feel like it's important to debunk this stuff. Surprise, surprise. Yes, it looks like international audiences are spending less on all media coming into their country, like movies and TV shows. They're spending less time watching it and they're spending less money on it. There's increased cultural relevance in the films that are coming out in China, Japan, India, South Korea. Local genres like anime or K-drama are outperforming Hollywood IPs in many markets. Political and systemic misalignment. Some international viewers reject politically themed or cultural distant U.S. stories, especially because of the administration we have right now. I know you guys don't want to believe that, but it is a factor. This information online is easily researchable. There's a greater investment in streamers and regional content and less promotion of U.S. shows in those markets. Remember how Trump wanted to tariff entertainment? Like, no one wants to take this shit on internationally because they don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow because of the volatile nature of our current administration. All of those are factors, but nobody that watches your content wants to hear that because you just want to reinforce confirmation bias.
Spin Superman as a success, whereas you can't do that with the Marvel films this year, especially since Marvel as a brand was still going stronger than DC. They still have had some hits. And
by the way, right now Warner Brothers 1.40 billion this year, and Walt Disney is 1.39 this year. There's literally a fraction of difference in the overall total financial success of both places this year. Okay, so you need to understand that Marvel is part of a well-oiled machine that is Disney. Disney as a company controls a lot of different IPs. All of those IPs funnel into Disney's overall value. Right now, their value and Warner Brothers value is very close together. So you're looking at a tiny slice of the pie and not looking at the whole picture. This is how you paint narratives, guys. This is how this happens. This is how these channels do this. This is how they get people to believe them and listen to them, is they pick out a tiny thing and they spin it into a narrative. Which, by the way, we are 4 minutes and something in this video, and we have still not touched on superhero movies in general. We've still not even gotten there yet because she said so much dumb shit up until this point. All she's been talking about is Marvel and DC. This is a big red flag that she's not talking about media and superhero movies in general. She's only talking about Marvel and DC. She's ignoring everything else. She's ignoring the TV shows. I'm saying that now. I don't know if she's going to cover those, but that's a factor as well.
The recent years compared to DC, which is why you can spin Superman as more as a success. And James Gunn wants you to see that as a success. And you might be like, well, times are different now. Exactly.
The gaslighting. The gaslight. You said you were being gaslit. No, we're being gaslit by you. You were attempting to gaslight us.
We're out of the superhero era of Hollywood. We're just out of it. There's just no denying it when you compare it to how well things were doing, even if they were bad movies. Suicide Squad, Batman versus Superman, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, these were not well-received films, but they still made a ton of money at the box office because there was interest there. So
it's almost like the quality doesn't matter, right? It's almost like the quality doesn't matter. It really just depends on a bunch of other factors that come into play with this and where people want to spend their money. We've already seen that this year, people are being very picky about what they're spending their money on. Families don't have a lot of money. I talked about this before, that we see a rising cost of living and people have to be very nitpicky about what they're going to go see. July was a packed month. We had at least 4 movies out in July that could have been seen as family movies, and Fantastic Four came out at the end of July. All the other stuff prior to that did pretty well. Superman is still doing pretty well. I know you're trying to spin that it isn't, but it's still doing pretty well in terms of like where it should be in the box office. So this whole idea that superhero movies are the problem, you're not looking at everything else. But we're going to get there. Before we get to the end of this video, I'm going to let you guys know how Hollywood and movies are doing in general, as a whole, as an ecosystem, because that is a bigger picture. I'm going to tell you guys the actual numbers. So make sure you stay till the end of this video, because I'm going to debunk everything that she's saying here by proving to you that it is not just superhero movies. I just want you to understand that.
So there's just no denying it. We are out of that era. And the reason why studios are asking you to adjust expectations and their fans are falling for it now is because they know that those days are done. And if you keep expecting these movies to make $1 billion or close to $1 billion, you're going to be disappointed because
that's a fallacy argument. That's a fallacy argument. No, I don't know anybody that sat around and thought that every single movie came out that was coming out from superhero films were going to make $1 billion. I run a podcast twice a week, and I have for, I think, a year now. It's been going. And before that, I ran one once a week where we talked about this stuff. When we look at movies, we would always go, well, yeah, that might make $1 billion. But we're very realistic about it. And we come from a community of fans who also are very realistic about it. This perception that Marvel needs to make $1 billion on every movie came from you guys. It came from you guys. You set that standard because they had some movies that reached $1 billion. And even then, movies like Captain Marvel got dismissed as being a fluke. It's just a fluke that it made $1 billion. Ignoring something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, ignoring that, but acting like Captain Marvel was a fluke. So the consistency doesn't even add up. It doesn't even make sense. You guys were the ones that set the standard for $1 billion. The Avengers movies, Spider-Man movies, yeah, I could see expecting those to make $1 billion. Everything else that came out from Marvel, in my opinion, had to fight for $1 billion. I never thought any of them were guaranteed $1 billion.
money isn't there anymore. So yes, this is it. The super.
Wait. Hold on. Did you say the money isn't there anymore? Maybe you should think a little bit harder about that statement. Let's hear that again, because it's not that people don't want to spend money on movies. It's that people don't have the money to spend on movies. That's an important distinction. Say that again.
Is because they know that those days are done. And if you keep expecting these movies to make $1 billion or close to $1 billion, you're going to be disappointed because the money isn't there anymore. So yes.
See, you said that because you think people don't want to see superhero movies, but the fact is that is a true statement, but not in the way that you meant it. Not within the context that you meant.
This is it. The superhero genre finally died off, and it's going to be very different. Now, in this video, I want to talk about that reality that superhero movies are, in fact, dead. They are not the box office juggernaut that they used to be. I want to talk about why that actually might be a good thing.
So we are 5 minutes into the video, and you have not adequately backed up your claims. Straight up, you have not backed up your claims. You cherry-picked a couple of movies. You cherry-picked a couple of years, and you just said, oh, the movies made this much money back then, and now they're making this much money then, and there you go. Superhero movies are dead. You literally did nothing. You took screenshots from the sales numbers of Box Office Mojo or Wikipedia, wherever the fuck you got them from, and you said, look, this made $500 this year, and this year it made $400, so it's over. It's over. Literally not adding any leverage to your claims. You have not proven your claims, Jesterbell. You have to, that's the point of this video. You have to prove your claims. But now you're going into why it's a good thing the superhero movies are going away. In 5 minutes, you think you can explain why an entire genre is failing in 5 fucking minutes? In 5 minutes. I am literally blown away. How you have a fucking audience on your channel, I don't understand. Do people legitimately watch your content and think that you're providing them with anything of any substance? It's not even entertaining. You're just lying to people. And I don't even know, like at this point, I don't know if it's because you don't understand that return on investment and the profit that you make from it is all that matters. Or if you like, do you not understand that? Or do you understand it and you're just like, I'm going to take the intelligence of my viewers for granted. I'm just going to play every single motherfucking person that watches my channel. I'm going to play them all for suckers and marks and make them believe that just some screenshots of how much a movie made. We're not going to take into account the economy, ticket sales, cultural shifts. We're not going to take any of that into account at all. Internationally, where are people at with American media? How are people spending their money today? Like, none of that is factored in. Here's a picture of movie A and movie B. My point is proven. Fam, I don't think I've ever been this frustrated with the video, or in a long time, probably. In a long time. A lot of the content of hers has been like either like boringly like ha ha ha, she's just saying dumb shit or whatever. This really sets me off. This really sets me off because it's one of those things where if you were giving me some substance to your claims and you're saying like, yeah, this is the reason why, and you pulled up numbers and I had to go, you know what? She's right. She's right. Adjusted for inflation totally explains it. Yeah, I see. Like this random movie from 2017 made 800 million, and now this movie made 400. So maybe like if you were giving me something that would matter, but you're not, and now you're going to go off into subjective land where you're just going to talk about why you think it's a good thing these movies are failing. I don't even know if I have it in me. I don't know if I have it in me. Let's try and get through this.
Not just for the industry, but actually for these superhero characters that people care.
Yeah, the industry it'll be really beneficial for them to lose a bunch of high profile IPs that are generating revenue for not only them, but for the theaters. That would be a great thing for the industry.
But to give some context, though, I want to just give a reminder of why superhero movies became so popular. I'm not just talking about Marvel here. I'm just talking about superheroes in general. Why was there such a craze over the genre? Such a craze that people were even willing to go see bad movies. Well,
okay. So before she even opens her mouth, I don't know what she's going to say. This is just a 100% go into it, not knowing anything reaction. I don't know what she's going to say here. Okay. Unless you're going to go back to say like, I would say for me, like you could go back further, but I think if we're talking about like the big Hollywood blockbuster stuff, that would happen like post Jaws, right? So this would be like after Jaws, because Jaws really was that first big like blockbuster movie that sort of created that whole entire pathway to this, right? I would say stuff like, you know, the Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, something like that. I would go back then, and then you could go into stuff like Blade. You could talk about some of the other like 2000s movies. You could really jump into those and use those as examples. And I think those are valid, right? If you're going to make that argument. If you're going to start in with like the 2010s and ignore all of that, and ignore a lot of the other superhero properties that came out that weren't Marvel or DC, because there's a lot of them out there. There's probably ones that I don't even know about. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what they are. Sometimes I find out somebody go, oh, that was based on a comic book. I had no idea. I suspect that she's not going to be able to do that. If I don't even know it, I doubt very seriously that she knows it.
If you really want to track it, superhero movies' popularity was correlated by the uptick in quality. Guys, I got to be honest with you. I've never been a fan of the Tim Burton Batman movies.
Okay, fair enough. She went back to these. I would say this is a fair starting point. This is a fair starting point. She says she's not a fan of it. That's fine. You don't have to be. I think this is a fair starting point. I want to see it. Well, actually, you know what? The funny thing about this is, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you talk about this earlier? Why are you talking about this now? You could have framed this earlier when you were comparing quality and sales. Why are you doing that afterwards?
Know that they have their fans, but why wasn't I a fan? Well, they honestly did not have the depth or development that I was used to seeing, because the superhero movies that brought me to the genre was stuff like Batman Begins and the Avengers. And
right, so that you don't have the okay, now it makes sense. Obviously, you weren't around. You're not old enough to be around when those movies came out. I was. I went and saw it in theaters. Matter of fact, my favorite superhero movie soundtrack of all time is that 1989 Batman film. That movie changed the industry forever with superhero movies. And it's one of those things where, yeah, you can look at it now and there's like, it's not going to be the greatest movie you've seen now, right? But there's a lot of cultural relevance to that movie when it came out. It's kind of a product of its time. There's a lot of movies over years that have been products of their time. That is one of them. And I get that. But if you're watching it like in hindsight and you're not taking into account like the era that it came out in, you're not going to give it a fair shake.
Stuff like that. And these movies just had more dimensional characters and more development to the
dimensional characters. There we go. For anybody not in on the joke, she doesn't understand what a one-dimensional character is. She doesn't understand what a two-dimensional character is. She doesn't understand that. So when she says it, it makes me giggle.
Those characters and the universe. That was not something that I got in, say, Tim Burton Batman movies. So when you look at the movies that were coming up pre-2000s, it makes sense of why superheroes was not this big genre and why superhero movies didn't get made that often.
Pre-2000s? All right, I just looked this up for shits and giggles. You guys know what the ROI has been on the Tim Burton Batman movie? You're not going to believe me when I tell you this. All right. You're not going to believe me when I tell you this. The ROI on that movie has been upwards of 247%. Now, the ROI on the Blade movie, which would have also been pre-2000, was around 8 to 10%. Both of those movies have done really well. Now, of course, the Batman ROI takes into account like we have enough information on that. We know like all the marketing stuff, all of the toy sales, all of that. But their return on investment to that movie was like I said, 247. It says 247 up to 310% ROI on that relative to its budget and everything. So to act like movies prior to 2000 were not money makers for studios is absolutely wild. The Batman movie had 4 films in that franchise. I know that they weren't directly connected towards the end, but there was 4 films in that franchise. There was 4. Blade spawned 2 sequels because of how much the ROI was on that movie. So those 2 examples alone prove that there was money in the market for superhero films prior to 2000. But again, she didn't do any research, so she doesn't know that. Literally, you guys can look this up. If you want to know whether or not a movie has been profitable over the years, look up the return on investment percentage. Just go online and look it up. That's all you have to do.
There wasn't really a consistency of quality to them whatsoever, even though some things like Christopher Reeve's Superman did really well. But then if you look at the 2000s, you can see that they started to have higher quality gradually. They started to have more depth to them.
Well, there's a couple reasons why. Special effects got better. VFX got better. Stunt work got better. They were capable of doing things in comic books that couldn't be done in film. That's one of the things that people never think about. A lot of movies back then were limited by what they were able to do in live action based on what comic book characters could do. That's why it looked the way it looked back then. So as we've gotten into like the 2010s and higher, we can almost do anything in a comic book in a live action movie. And therefore, there's going to be higher quality overall in the movie just because of that. Not even taking into account like the scripts, or the the soundtracks, the cinematography, not even taking that into account. Just the fact that they're capable of doing more with these characters in live action because of stunt work and VFX and stuff like that makes a difference.
Like movies like Batman Begins. Oh, I was seeing a great post the other day, and it was talking about how, Batman Begins had a ton of depth to it. Batman Begins was very praised for the way it handled its theme of fear. Batman Begins is a very meaningful movie to me because of how it handles those themes.
Well, it's nostalgic to you. I'm assuming because of your age, it was a movie that you probably latched onto. Just like me, I was very nostalgic for the 89 Batman movie. So for me, I'm going to latch onto that one. Nostalgia and how you feel about something is going to skew what you think of it every time. That's why when I say there's not a lot of objective ways to look at these things, it's all subjective. So doing objective things when it comes to these type of movies is almost impossible. That's why I get so frustrated with the kind of content that you make.
with Batman. It is a highly intelligent movie. Batman Begins does not get enough credit for what it did with the superhero genre and Batman as a character. And then The Dark Knight, wow, that was just like a cultural moment when it released because of what it showed that a superhero movie could be and what you could do with a character like Batman and just how iconic Heath Ledger as a performance was.
Okay, so now that we're going through this, what does it have to do with anything? Are you okay? Let's fast forward through this, right? She's going to say that because movies are failing now, we're going to get some sort of a comic book renaissance, when in fact, studios will most likely just not do comic book movies for a while. If the foundation crumbles on this, studios are going to go, yeah, it's because, again, like I said in a previous video, the studios don't set trends, they follow trends. If the studio is shown that this type of movie is in fact trending out, they will just stop making them. They will stop making them, and we'll have to wait a decade or more to get them to even think about making these movies again. I don't think that's going to happen anyway, but that is the theory that a lot of these chuds have, is this romanticism about like the tearing the system down and then we'll build it back up from the ground up. No, that's not the way it's going to work. Studios aren't going to do that. That's just not the way they view any of this. Whatever the obvious answer is, studios are always going to do the opposite of that.
Now, have we seen a movie like The Dark Knight since The Dark Knight? No, we haven't. Movies like that are long gone.
I love that you have the Marvels on the screen comparing it to The Dark Knight. Anecdotal cherry pick comparisons. This is a Nerdrotic 101. This is what Nerdrotic does. This is what Critical Drinker does. Why are you showing this movie in contrast to The Dark Knight? What is the reason for that? You think it's to drive home the point that the movies today aren't the same quality as The Dark Knight, but you're showing two movies of completely different types. The Dark Knight and the Marvels could not be further apart in terms of like just the type of movies they are. Because superhero movies are not monolithic. They're not all the same kinds of movies. Some superhero movies can be more drama and thriller inspired. Some can be more sci-fi. Some can be more street level, grounded, noir type stuff. Some of them can be outrageous. Some of them can be funny. Some of them can be silly. Some of them can be more serious, more adult oriented. They're not monolithic. I mean, to be just fair about it, straightforward about this, superhero movies are not really a genre in themselves. They're more of a subgenre, right? So like if you're looking at something like The Dark Knight would be considered an action crime, thriller, drama with a subgenre of superhero movie. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy would be sci-fi, adventure, comedy, space opera with a subgenre of superhero movie. Wonder Woman will be fantasy, action, war, romance with a subgenre of superhero movie. Those are all genres. Like they're very like they're tentpole phrases like action, crime, thriller, drama, fantasy, action. They're at the top. And then we have subgenres underneath of those that kind of go even deeper and describe what type of action movie is it? What type of crime movie is it? What type of comedy is it? And that's where superhero movies fall into. So The Dark Knight is not the same as the Marvels. There would be a lot of other genres that they would be a part of. And the only connective tissue is the subgenre. They're not even from the same comic book company. So they wouldn't even share that. So basically what you're saying is that you believe there's a monolithic comparison between all of these superhero movies that ignore the actual primary and secondary genres they come from, and you're only applying the subgenre category. This is surface level. This is surface level complaints. It doesn't even make sense, guys.
And especially for the superhero genre. But like as the
superhero subgenre
years went by and the more quality you got from superhero movies and having visionaries like Christopher Nolan working on them, the more popular they became. The Dark Knight was the very first billion-dollar superhero film. And then when The Avengers came out, that is a high-quality summer blockbuster. That is one of the best summer blockbusters ever made. I will die on that hill. If you really want to look into the film and what it did with its character development, how it was able to develop this group of characters with very, very strong castings and get you to care about them and get you to care about their flaws and them coming together at the end, and how it was able to make what would seem to be a conventional alien invasion exciting. But after that, and The Avengers...
So are we talking about why it's a good thing now? I thought that was where we were in your video, that why it's a good thing. What does any of this have to do with that? You could have had this in the first section of your video. Why is this in the why it's a good thing section? Shouldn't you be talking about what you think it looks like in the future for these instead of reminiscing about nostalgic stuff from the past? I thought we were going to do a much deeper dive, but you kind of jumped quickly through that. And then you lied about movies being not successful prior to 2000 with ROI. You lied about that. So Okay.
Was the true movie that made the superhero genre explode. After that, they overall continued to produce this very high level of quality. Like 2014, we were talking about, that had X-Men Days of the Future Past, which was one of the
Days of the Future Past. Days of the Future Past. You could have edited that out if you knew that was incorrect, but I'm going to assume you didn't know that it was incorrect. And that's what you actually think the title is. Let's hear that one more time for the people in the back.
Made the superhero genre explode. After that, they overall continued to produce this very high level of quality. Like 2014, we were talking about, that had X-Men Days of the Future Past, which was...
By the way, she uses a script. She's using a script for this. She writes out all this stuff. So she wrote that out, and then she said it in her video, and she left it in her video, which means it's not a mistake. Days of the Future Past. So first of all, it's literally the title of one of the most iconic comic book stories of all time, if you're an X-Men fan. Secondly, it is a movie that a lot of people remember as one of the best of the X-Men franchise. So the fact that you got the title wrong from the movie, and you obviously didn't know that was the title from the comic books. Need I say more, everyone? It's like when Critical Drinker called Silver Surfer Norrin Rads. Rads with an S.
One of the best received X-Men films up to that point. And none of these movies are perfect, but X-Men Days of the Future Past really...
She said it a second time. So it wasn't a mistake. That's literally what she thinks the title is. X-Men Days of the Future Past. Is this a Mandela moment for me, or am I right? Let me double check. I want to make sure that's not what they titled the movie. X-Men Days of Future Past. No, it was actually the title from the comics. I want to make sure I wasn't having like one of those moments, because she said it twice. But no, she's wrong.
It goes all in with the emotion and what it's trying to do with its characters. And The Winter Soldier, that was one of the best theater experiences I ever had. And the action from that movie, from John Wick director Chad Stahelski, with the chase, once again, it is intelligent with its themes, and that being portrayed as just an excellent spy thriller. And then that same year, you had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. And I know that it might not seem like it now, but what Guardians of the Galaxy did was completely fresh at the time. You had never seen anything that original up to that point. So even as superheroes had gotten all these fans thanks to movies like The Dark Knight and The Avengers and things like that, even after they got that success, they just kept meeting that bar. They kept meeting it with the quality of their films, and they kept innovating and bringing in new directors.
I want to point out, there's nothing wrong with like looking back at these movies and saying they were really good. I think a lot of these movies are really good, but the economy was very different. We're talking about post-COVID. I know these guys never want to bring that up, but post-COVID has affected a lot of viewing habits. Again, I'm going to break all of that down at the end of this video. So you definitely want to stick around for the end. I have a few things that are going to just completely change perspective on this after we're done with all her bullshit.
On board to bring their visions to life with these. You even got quality TV like Daredevil season 1. But yeah, you did have a high...
Okay, so we are including television. Now we're talking about something completely different. If you're going to include TV in any of this, meaning if she brings it up again about Marvel or DC or whatever, that's a completely different metric. It's completely different from movies.
Uptick in quality, and that's why people would come, even though not all these movies were good, but people kind of had that general expectancy of these movies that they...
I love that, like, you're framing it as if superhero movies were good and therefore people were just wasting their money on bad superhero movies. Like, is that the take? That during this time there were no bad superhero movies, that none of them underperformed at the box office and didn't make any money for the studios? Because in order for this to be a necessary condition, meaning that everyone goes and sees these movies because they just believe they were going to be good movies, you would have to say there is no flops in that time. There's no underperforming movies that occurred in that era, between that time period. Like, I would say, because I'm not sure when the cutoff point is for you, right? But you mentioned 2017 Justice League, right? And we talked about that. That was a net negative for the studio. They didn't make money back on that one. So you look at stuff like that, you're saying that these movies performed well, not just because they were good movies, because you've already established that, but because people were used to the movies being so good, they were just willing to spend money on them. But then in this same block of time, there were movies that didn't do well, that underperformed at the box office. There were movies that did that. I'm not going to do that work for you. Sorry, guys, I would, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that work for you. We all know it. There are movies that underperformed at the box office during this time period. We know there is. if you start trying to like get out of this by using some random like, oh, well, there's always going to be outliers. If there's outliers, then this isn't a necessary condition and your argument falls apart. If there are outliers, that means this standard isn't a standard. It's not a standard. This means it literally becomes your subjective take on all of this. All of it
would match that level of quality. And once again, there was that whole attraction to the themes of heroism from these movies. But superhero movie success was kind of also their downfall, because the more successful they got, the more lazy it.
You just keep using the same clip from the Marvels. You know, the interesting thing about this is that you are so dependent on your script that you're not even on camera, which is fine, except for the fact that you've gotten stuff wrong and you're not giving any actual numbers or figures or real information to back this up. This is how I feel, and everybody else is wrong. Feelings don't equate rightness.
I mean, for one thing, the more successful it became, like too big to fail. For Marvel Studios, they got rid of a lot of the people who were involved in the beginning who used to make things work. There were power grabs. People took over.
Like who? Who are you talking about? I honestly don't know who you're talking about. You're saying that there were power grabs and blah, 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 whatever. Specifically who? Like Kevin Feige is still in charge. So what power grabs are you talking about? You talking about the TV division with the whole thing with Ike Perlmutter and stuff? Is that what you're talking about? Bob Chapek and Bob Iger? Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Give some examples.
Parties became very interested in these superhero movies and properties because they were so big and influential. That's how in comics, you know, things started to become much more politicized. That's how you got the all different characters who eventually came in and were part of the reason why Marvel actually went through a downfall. Like, that's what happened with superheroes. Like, you had different parties.
I mean, are you going to give examples? This is, keep in mind, as we go through this, this is supposed to be a comprehensive video. She said this was comprehensive. When you say comprehensive, you have to do more than just say, you have to give information. Like, for example, if you're saying that all this was going on, like all new, all different was a problem, like this particular comic that was poorly received by fans and didn't sell this many copies, and this comic that did this and caused Marvel to have to do that. Like, those are examples. Saying something and then not giving any relevance to your claim, not giving any actual information to back up your claim, is not a fact. It's not a fact. You don't have to give me every single thing, but you've literally given me nothing. I've done all the heavy lifting in this video. If it weren't for me, people watching your video wouldn't know this information. Like, all the stuff that I gave you with the information about the economy, about ticket sales, all that, I gave you all of that. That was a freebie. That was a freebie, okay?
Take an interest in them because they were so successful and influential and wanting to do their own things with them. And that's how you got all these other people seeping in and making changes to them. That's why the movies gradually, they used to care.
Who are all these other people? Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Name names. Give me some names.
A little bit more about capturing the essence of these stories and characters, and that gradually fell away because who cares about the source material anymore? Who cares about comics? These things are too big to fail. And so that's kind of what really changed.
Okay, so who cares about the source material? When you just admitted, you're saying that they said, who cares about the source material? Who cares about the comics? When you just admitted that even though they're pulling the stories from the comics, they're the ones that you don't like. So even when you have characters like Ms. Marvel coming over, Kate Bishop coming over, any of these characters coming over, Sam Wilson as Captain America coming in, even though you have this fidelity from comics to live action, people are still complaining. So that can't, let's say this again, that's not a necessary condition. If your condition is that they don't care about the fidelity from the comics, but then your secondary argument is the comics also changed and nobody liked it, then that was not a necessary condition for the movies being good. If you're going to make a claim like this, where it's like, this is the standard, you have to make it, you have to explain why your necessary condition is necessary. And if your condition has any differences in it, any at all, then it is no longer a necessity, which means it is no longer more than just a claim. So this is a claim with no actual proof to it because you've allowed other things to change your claim.
Just they got too big for their own good. It became, get rid of these directors, bring their own visions to these films. Let's get some people we can control because the corporations just want to control what.
Who are the people they're controlling? Who are you talking about? One of the most poorly received films in this space has been Thor: Love and Thunder, right? One of the most poorly received films. Literally was a director being allowed to do whatever he wanted to do. There was almost no oversight on that movie. Marvel got him to come in. He did Thor Ragnarok, absolutely incredible film. Most people would not argue about that. Most, it's not a certainty. I'm not saying that. Most people wouldn't argue about Thor: Love and Thunder or Thor Ragnarok being bad. Most people like that movie. They allowed Taika Waititi to do a movie without a lot of oversight, and it ended up being one of the fans' least favorite movies in this space, on YouTube in general, and on social media to some degree. Now, scoring online probably reflects something different, which is fine. That's fine if you want to take that in. But that is an example of Marvel letting a director do what they want to do without a lot of mandates and oversight, and it ended up being a movie that became very divisive here on YouTube in different spaces. So you're talking about them bringing people in that they can control, when we've seen previously that even when they have no control over stuff, it can still be poorly received by fans. That can still happen. So again, not a necessity. Not a necessity.
These movies are now. Who needs these directors coming in? So you really lost all that. And yeah,
so you think Ryan Coogler? You're literally, Ryan Coogler is a director and producer. You're saying that Marvel controls Ryan Coogler. You're saying after they just fucked him over. They fucked him over with Ironheart and with the Eyes of Wakanda series by basically putting that shit out stealth without hardly any promotion. Ironheart got a little bit of promotion that week leading up to it, but prior to that, almost no promotion for that. Literally no promotion for Eyes of Wakanda. But you're talking about directors that Marvel is controlling, and you're showing Ryan Coogler's product on screen. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, for real?
Ultimate reason, if we're going to bring it all back to these superhero movies, is...
You know what I also love is that every single time you show something negative, and maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's not, it's either a woman or a black person or another person who isn't white. Every time you show something that's supposed to be seen negative, the imagery is some sort of diversity in Marvel. And whenever you show something that people love, it's always the white guys. It's always the white dudes. I'm just putting that out there. Just putting it out there.
Quality, and the quality still has not come back. And even still, it is difficult to get people back once you've lost them. Just as there were enough good movies in the past to make people maybe want
you show the black guy, the black girl, a Chinese American character who's the actor's Korean. So all of that, we're showing all of that. Literally no white people in the negative stuff yet. None.
Check out one, even if it's not so great. When you've had that many years of bad films,
and calling Shang-Chi not great is a choice. That's a choice.
Good luck getting people back. It's going to be very difficult. You can't just make things that are less bad and expect people to come back. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she...
Oh, your sister, the one that works for Ben Shapiro? That used to work with Steven Crowder? That sister? That's the one you were talking to? I wonder what she said about diversity in these movies. I wonder what her take was on this. I wonder if she's a little bit more open-minded, or is she going to like say the same thing that you're saying? I'm just wondering what the position on this is. Let's hear what she has to say.
Is definitely more of a casual audience member with this stuff. She's not like me. I'm not normal. I'm just watching all this stuff anyway. But I asked her, because she just doesn't want to hear any of it. She used to be a big Marvel fan. She just doesn't want to hear about it now. And I asked her, okay, fantasy scenario. If one thing could bring you back to watch a Marvel movie again, what would it be? And she thought for a minute, and she said, they would have to do an X-Men movie to the point where I leave the theater feeling good. And I'm like, yeah, there is a way to get people back, but the bar is high because you lost a lot of people now. So let me talk about...
How would you know how you're going to feel about a movie before you watch the movie? She would have to... Hold on. She said she would come back if the X-Men movie would allow her to leave the movie feeling good. How do you know that prior to watching the fucking movie? What kind of standard is that? That sounds like an answer you either made up or her responses are just as dumb as yours.
Where the superhero genre is going to go now, because there's still some money to be made. I'm sure Spider-Man will do really well next year.
So is it dead or nah? Is it dead or nah? I'm just curious at this point.
Superman still did something, right? So they're not going to completely die off. They're not going to go the way of the Western, but it is going to.
Why do I bother at this point? Why do any of us bother at this point? If you're going to make a claim in your title and capitalize the word in it, superhero movies are dead. And we're 13 minutes into your 18-minute video, and you go, well, they're not going to die completely. You have essentially, for lack of a better term, clickbaited your content. This is like the definition of clickbait. Your title made a claim, and then in your video, you said that's not your claim. So your claim isn't that superhero movies are dead. That's not your claim. Matter of fact, you've admitted this 13 minutes in, which means the rest of this video is going to be somehow contradicting what your title is, I guess. Right? You also said that you felt gaslighted by Superman, and now you're saying that Superman is doing well. So which is it? Have you been gaslit by Superman and it's actually performing like shit in the studio lied to us and that James Gunn lied to us? Or is it performing well and this proves that superhero movies aren't dying? Let's run this back for a second. I want to hear that one more time because it sounds to me like you literally just lied in your title. Like it's not like a different, like I don't understand how she got there, or it's some sort of like, I don't know, maybe it's a play on words or whatever. No, you literally said superhero movies are dead, present tense, but now you're saying that's not actually true. There's no question mark. There's no sort of like counter statement there other than, but it might be a good thing, which still talks about it being dead or whatever. So you essentially literally just straight up clickbaited with your title.
Go now because there's still some money to be made. I'm sure Spider-Man will do really well next year. Superman still did something, right? So they're not going to completely die off. They're not going to go the way of the Western, but it is going to change. What is going to happen with James Gunn's Superman universe? Well, it's not really in a great place considering your next movies following up are Supergirl and Clayface.
Why is Supergirl a bad follow-up? Because she's a woman? I mean, I don't know what the other reason would be. It's based on a really, really popular comic book series, the Woman of Tomorrow series. Most people really enjoy that run. So why is it not a good thing? What is the reason why? Anecdotally, and I want to make this very clear, in my own personal opinion, I'm very excited for Supergirl based on what I saw in Superman. So I don't know what you mean by it being a bad thing. All right. Are you going to explain why? Clayface, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about Clayface, but I don't think Supergirl is going to be bad, and I'm really excited for it. So are you going to explain why Supergirl is a bad thing? Let's see.
I don't see James Gunn getting a big interconnected MCU-like behemoth of a universe in the future. I think that there's enough success there relative to the time we're living in that he's...
No, so I guess no, we're not going to follow that up. Just Supergirl's bad. For one reason or another. Also, James Gunn has said he's not trying to do the MCU. He said he wants it to be more like Star Wars, where there's a loose connection between these stories. That's exactly what he said. So you're creating a straw man. He never said that. He never said he wanted to be the MCU. That's never been a claim of his.
Just going to play in that superhero sandbox for a while until he gets tired of it. We'll just have an era where James Gunn is making James Gunn produced movies. He seems like he can't get a Batman off the ground. We'll see how that is, but that's just going to be the era with it. And there will still be DC movies. Maybe some of them will do well. Maybe some of them won't. That's kind of how it's going to be with superhero films. It's going to go back to the way it was before the 2010s, where they existed, but the industry wasn't dependent on them. They weren't so big that the industry became dependent on them. And that might...
What is your proof of that? What is your proof of that? Are you going to give us, like, in order for that to be, like, that's a claim, in order for you to back up that claim, you would need to provide us with information about other film types in the industry, other subgenres within the industry that are going to pick up the slack for this. Are there other film types that people are gravitating towards that they like more? Are those films going to be larger in production? Is there any proof the studios are looking for other things outside of superhero movies? Like, are they going out and investing in other types of movies besides superhero movies that they're going to fill in those gaps? Is there any actual evidence to back up your claim at all? One thing. Give me one thing to back up your claim on.
Be a good thing for both parties involved. For one thing, you know, this is the closing video for July. For one thing, the industry became just so dependent on IP films, and superheroes were a big push for.
So no, you have no proof to back up your claim. Your claim is that the studios are going to start looking for other things, but then you have no evidence of that. You have no proof of that. There's nothing there to support your claim. This is one of the most frustrating things about this type of YouTube video. Whether it be her, whether it be Critical Drinker, whether it be Nerdrotic, there is never an actual solution provided for any fucking thing. There's never a solution. If you're going to make a video like this, give me something. Or is it too hard for you to actually put your foot in the sand and say, this is where I stand on this. This is my actual take on this. This is my actual opinion on this, that doesn't rely heavily on being outraged about an actor being cast in a movie or what's being done on the press tour. Are you going to give us any actual substantial stuff to back up any of the things you're saying? Are you even capable of doing that? And when I say you, I don't mean Jesterbell specifically. I mean all of these guys. Are any of you capable of doing that at all? Even a little bit?
That it became just about the IPs. If the industry is starting to lose these IPs, and it has, because even Jurassic World has the highest grossing movie of this July, it's still underperformed. It's the first Jurassic World movie that is not going to do $1 billion.
You know what's funny? It's almost like there are other factors affecting Hollywood films right now that are not specific to superhero movies. You just brought up a non-superhero movie and said, look, this movie is underperforming. Jurassic World is not a superhero movie and it's underperforming. You just said it's going to be the first one that doesn't hit $1 billion. The first one. So for everybody paying attention, this is one of those, is it a necessity for it to be a superhero movie or is it not? She literally gave us one. She gave us one. She didn't even have to bring up Jurassic World. She didn't even have to bring it up. But the fact that she brings it up and says, look, this movie is also underperforming, just tells you there are other factors that are shifting box offices right now that are not necessarily tied to the superhero subgenre.
As companies keep losing these IPs and they're not selling anymore, then it might force them to have to look at other things, like have to start new IPs or have to start taking a risk with people creating something new. That might happen. It's not.
So Marvel investing a lot of money in their phases 4 and 5, where they decided to not do an Avengers movie, not to rest on their laurels, not to keep doing the same stuff they were always doing, trying different stuff with directors, trying stuff on the TV side, trying to interconnect stories in a different way. All of these major things were not risky. They weren't risky for Marvel to do that. It wasn't risky to get rid of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. That wasn't risky. It wasn't risky to make Sam Wilson Captain America. That wasn't risky. It wasn't risky to do their first ever team up movie with all women, 2 of them from being TV shows, 1 of them from coming from $1 billion franchise and not using her name in the title of the movie and just calling it The Marvels. That wasn't risky. The Eternals wasn't risky. Releasing a Black Widow movie after everybody been asking for it for years during the pandemic, that wasn't risky. None of these things were risky, you guys. None of them. Marvel has just been doing the same thing, and by doing the same thing and taking no risk at all, somehow the quality diminished and people stopped spending money because they were doing the same thing, right? They weren't taking risk. I don't like to just be insulting to be insulting. I'm about that life though. Like I like day to day with people I know, yeah, I'll toss insults out or whatever. But there's some people that I just feel like either there's something going on with them or they're just liars. So I have a choice here. Do I want to call you like someone that's lazy and lies a lot? Do I want to do that? Or do I want to say maybe you're just not capable of understanding the things you're talking about? Neither one of those things are good, but one of them at the very least means that you have a conscious decision to just not be honest and leave out relevant information. The other one means that you're just not smart enough and not wise enough and not intelligent enough to actually contextualize the ideas that you have without missing context. Like, I don't know which one of those it is, but it has to be one of those things. Because to say that Marvel took no risk at all, but yet the quality of their content dropped because of the things they were doing that were risky, it takes a level of ignorance and stupidity and cognitive dissonance that I can't even I can't wrap my brain around it. I cannot wrap my brain around it.
It's not going to be like it was before, where they just had to rely on the billion-dollar films. If the billion-dollar films are drying up, they're going to have to be pushed to something else. Now, it could be that they just give up and let the theaters die and go to streaming, which they would have the same problems if they're still making bad stuff. But I'm hoping that maybe if they're seeing that these IPs do have an endpoint and you can push things away, then maybe that pushes the industry to focus more on quality, focus on not just milking IPs to death. Like they've
I mean, is there any historical accuracy to that? Like, is there any examples you can give historically that when something dries up in Hollywood, that it just comes back randomly because the studios are trying to push creative stuff? Or is it more proof that studio just looks for more low hanging fruit to put out there? Which one of those things do you think is more likely to happen? The studios that are already struggling a bit in the financial department because of consumer spending are going to go, yeah, we're going to get rid of stuff that's making us a decent amount of money and throw that all away to try a bunch of brand new stuff that we've never tried before. As I've said, historically, Hollywood chases trends. They don't create trends. So unless there's something else out there cultural that's relevant to them that they can make a movie about or something, then that's not going to happen.
Almost milked all these IPs to death. The only one that isn't having diminishing returns is unfortunately Lilo and Stitch with the Disney remakes, because that made $1 billion, and that's the only movie this year that's made $1 billion. But you know, it might not
diminishing. Did you say the only movie that hasn't had diminishing returns is Lilo and Stitch? Did you say that?
Milked all these IPs to death. The only one that isn't having diminishing returns is unfortunately Lilo and Stitch with.
Do you not understand what diminishing returns means? I really don't want to have to do this again because this video is already really long anyway, but let me look up the return on investment in the top 5 movies from this year to see if there's been diminishing returns. We're not going to have a clear picture, but we will have some of the numbers on return on investment, because then we'll be able to find out where we're at. I'm just curious what the studios were making, because diminishing returns means they're not making money back off of stuff. I don't believe that's the case, but just for myself and just to prove this, I want to look up like the top 5 movies of 2025 and see if all of them are in the negative. All right, we're going to start out with the #1 movie in the world this year, and that is Niza 2, which I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know a lot about it, but the ROI on that movie is upwards of 1,000%. 1,000% ROI on that. The net profit is $1.10 billion on that movie. All right. Lilo and Stitch, the ROI on that is 110 to 125%, which means they made somewhere between 290 and 313 million profit on that. Minecraft movie, ROI on that is 110 to 130%, which, as you can see already, that's got a slightly higher ROI than Lilo and Stitch, which is the #2 film in total sales at the box office. Jurassic World Rebirth, get ready for this one, 40 to 55% ROI. A movie that she was just talking shit about has a 40 to 50% ROI on it. #5 is How to Train Your Dragon live action. That's got 10 to 30% ROI. Those are 5 movies this year, the top 5 films this year in terms of box office sales, and none of them have diminishing returns. None of them have diminishing returns. And this is what I meant earlier in the video when I talked about the fact that they leave out this kind of information. Either they don't know or they're narrow in their viewpoint, meaning they're only looking at specifically Marvel and DC movies. They're not taking into account anything else. But then she brought up Jurassic World and Lilo and Stitch. So she took herself outside of that bubble. And they don't know what they're talking about. Diminishing returns, you don't know what that means. You either don't understand it or you're hiding it from your viewers. I really hope your viewers stumble upon my videos so they'll see just how much of a fraud you're being in this video.
To focus more on quality, focus on not just milking IPs to death. Like they've almost milked all these IPs to death. The only one that isn't having diminishing returns is unfortunately Lilo and Stitch.
Unfortunately? What does that even mean? It's also a lie, though. We just proved that.
With the Disney remakes, because that made $1 billion, and that's the only movie this year that's made $1 billion. But
no, Niza 2 has also made more than that. So,
you know, it might not be a bad thing if these industry people are forced to find other ways to make money and not just milk these IPs to death. But the other way that I think that this is going to be good for superheroes is, like I said, they got so big, it started to become co-opted by other interesting parties that were after them.
Why are you repeating yourself? Why are you repeating yourself? We already heard this. Like, what's the point? What's the relevancy in repeating this? And you're still not giving names. I don't know who you're talking about. Co-opted by who? Who co-opted the Marvel franchises? Like, who are we talking about?
Money. And these characters started to change, and they started to not care about the comics anymore, and the comics became overtaken by other people. And another thing is they got so big that they thought that they were too big to fail and that they could do anything.
Is this a repeat of what you just said? It feels like it's even the same scenes. Is this an editing error in your video?
And that people would watch and people would stay on board. Clearly, that isn't the case. So if superhero movies are no longer guaranteed billion-dollar hits, well, for one thing, it means that a lot of those leeches trying to take over these characters and stuff might leave and find greener pastures.
Who are the leeches? Name names, drop names. Be about that life. Drop a name. Don't be a bitch about it. Drop a name. Just drop a name. It's real sus when people don't name names. If I'm talking about somebody, I'm going to say who they are. Just like, you don't even know these people. Name names.
Because now they can't milk these characters that they don't actually care about to death. We might actually reach a...
What proof do you have they don't care? These, okay, so first of all, one, who are we talking about? Two, what proof do you have they don't care about them? Like, where's your proof? You're making a claim. There's no evidence. There's no proof.
State where the characters can just be themselves because people aren't trying to take them over and use them because they're after the money. But on another level...
newsflash, all the studios are after money. All of them. Anything that comes out of Hollywood is people after money. The only people that are not necessarily after money are the people at the creative level. And even then they need to make a living. So they want some money. So this is not like a bunch of passion projects where nobody's getting paid, where there's no money exchanging hands. Everything that comes out of Hollywood is going to be a ploy to make money. Period.
Now that superhero movies are not going to consistently make $1 billion, it could also mean that now they have something.
$1 billion is such, why that number? It's not about $1 billion. It is about the return on investment. It is about the percentage of money that they make as profit. Some movies make more profit than others, depending on how much money the studio makes after everything is paid back. It doesn't have to be $1 billion. That flat number doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
To prove. So now if somebody picks up the franchise and the IP, because no one's ever really gone, as Luke Skywalker infamously said, now it means they might actually have to work and actually hammer home a quality script and actually have to up the game again, because this is
all subjective stuff. Like, it's just all subjective stuff. You haven't proven any of your claims. There's literally not one claim you made in this video that you've had proof for. Matter of fact, I have given you counter evidence that has disproved your claims or added additional context to your claims, which have disproven them or challenged them. You've not provided us with anything at all. This is a 18-minute no substance video.
It's not a guaranteed hit anymore. They have stuff to prove again. That is why in the early days of superhero films, there was a push for the quality of these films because they had something to prove. They didn't have a proof that they could create a universe.
So the only reason the early movies did well is because they had something to prove. Like what is your evidence on that? What is your evidence that shows the people making these movies, these early movies, were doing it because they had something to prove versus trying to make money? Where is your proof on that? Do you have an interview? Do you have an article? Do you have a quote? Do you have anything that proves that? Anything at all? No? Okay, then it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Or anything. So it's kind of seems like a cycle, and it was eventually always going to get this way where it became oversaturated and too big for its own good and too many other people involved and too many of the right people cut out.
You hear that? It was always going to be this way. It was inevitable, like Thanos would say. Like, it's always going to be this way. So if it's always going to be this way, then there was no way for them to get out of this, right? So what are we doing? What are we doing? If this was always the end point of this, then there's nothing they could have done along the way to change where we are now. Meaning that nothing you said prior to this, even though it didn't mean much to begin with, it means less. It's like dust in the wind now. It means nothing. If you're saying that these movies, this was the inevitable end game. See what I did there? It was the inevitable end game that these movies were always going to end up this way, then there's nothing they could have done to change the outcome. Nothing they could have done.
So this is overall going to be a good thing, not just for the industry, but for the characters we love, because it means they are free from the spotlight. It means that they are free from needing to be for everyone. And it means that eventually new people might be able to come in and look at.
You don't want new people. You don't want diversity. So here's the deal. How do you expect to get new people into this as a large group? If you're like, we're just going to go back to the way it was, where movies don't actually represent a large group of people. It's a very narrow group of people that it represents. Somehow that's going to bring more people in because that's what people want. They want movies to go back to focusing on primarily straight white men. No more. We're not even bothering to look outside of that anymore. You want the reset button for that. Okay.
And attempt to do these characters, but do them right rather than just, cashing in on an IP. You have something to prove again, so you might actually have to put the work again. So I hope for the best here, but it is interesting to finally.
You don't hope for the best. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. 100%. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. There have been studies done that show that people get attached to things at a certain age in their life, and that will always be their standard. That's always going to be what you look back on fondly, whether it be music or TV shows or cartoons or movies or whatever. It's always going to be your standard. So you're never, ever going to have something that makes you feel the way you felt when you watch those original things. Every single person in their lives goes through a point where they look back on something and they feel like that was the best time in their life. And there's nothing that lives up to that. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with this stuff because you personally don't feel that way or your anecdotal group of friends doesn't feel that way. That doesn't mean anything. There was a time period when rap music was considered to be, it's just going to go away. It's just a fad. It's gone on to be one of the largest types of music in the world. In the world. And this is something that came from my childhood when I was growing up. So when I look at people complaining about this stuff today and getting mad about this stuff today, it's so funny to me because I know that's not the way the world works. I know that's not the way things happen. The ignorant bliss it must be to be in this world, even for a moment, to just have a reality that's all your own that makes no sense whatsoever to the rest of the world. Just so I can understand what they get out of doing this. I just want to know what they get out of doing this. Being willfully ignorant.
See the end of this era, and I only hope that the best things are coming from it, from the industry finally not being dependent on superheroes and these superheroes finally being free from all of the expectancy behind them. But that's all I got for you guys today.
I have to be honest with you guys. This was one of the the other video that I watched from her this week was frustrating, but in a different way. It was because she just kept essentially just repeating the same thing over and over again. There was nothing new there. And this one, she tries to frame everything as some sort of fact, right? Like this is just how it is, but then doesn't have anything to back up her claims. And then anytime I fact checked her and I just did a few minutes of research, she was wrong or she was leaving out context. So before I go, I do want to talk to you guys about the industry as a whole. I want to give you some numbers to show you that this is a trend in the industry and it's not specific to superhero movies. Okay, did a little bit of searching here and it seems like the slide in films in terms of overall money coming into the box office started in the mid 2010s, and a lot of it has to do with a few factors. One of the smaller factors, but still a factor, is the original films like mid-budget comedies and dramas have been shifted from theatrical releases to streaming releases. They're inexpensive for studios to make and put out on Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that. And they're not big enough to put in theaters and go up against some of these more juggernaut type films. So they kind of disappeared. The COVID-19 pandemic has delivered a massive blow on the global box office, which started out coming back into theaters at a 70% downturn at the beginning when people started going back to theaters, when movies started coming out again. 70%. We also forget the little bump in the road that was the 23-24 writers and actor strike and director strike for a minute there, which also pushed back releases and ruined a lot of fans' interest in going to see these movies because there was a good chunk of a time. Think about this. In that period of time, a lot of movies, TV shows got delayed, postponed, production got screwed over because of it, stuff got canceled. A lot of things happened because of that. Those are three major factors. Just to put this in perspective, Q1 2025 has been the weakest box office, excluding COVID. We're not going to count COVID, so just a normal box office year since 1996. AMC is reporting a 10% drop in viewership, and theaters served just 42 million customers from January to March, the lowest in decades. The domestic box office was $9.5 billion, which is up 8% from 2024, but still down 17% below pre-pandemic levels, which would have been 2016 to 2019. March 2025 was down over 50% compared to March 2024. 50%. This is not, and none of this is exclusive to superhero movies. This is all raw numbers about people going to and spending money at the theaters, right? Now, here's what they believe is behind the decline. Now, a lot of this comes from like Deadline, a Hollywood Reporter, right? There's a shrinking variety of mid-budget originals. Audiences only leave home for event movies. The rest of the slate lacks appeal. Home theater offers high-quality 4K setups for less than the cost of several box office visits. I've said this before. If you can rent a movie at home for $20 with like 5 people, you've already saved like 60% on the ticket price. Streaming, gaming, and social media compete aggressively for attention. Stuff gets spoiled on social media super easy. Rising ticket and concession prices further dissuade casual moviegoers. This is interesting. The global share of U.S. films dropped from 85.6% in 2014 to 69.5% in 2024 as local production boomed in China, Japan, and India. China's quotas and evolving trade policies further squeeze Hollywood's overseas revenue share. This is from CNBC and Deadline as well. Hollywood production in LA has dropped nearly 40% over the last decade due to runaway production and tax incentive shifts, like going to places like Atlanta, going to Vancouver, filming overseas. That's affected a lot of that. Studios are releasing fewer films per year, focusing on large-scale IP titles over original content. So just like you were saying before, that they can't depend on the big superhero movies, yeah, they're also not depending on any of the mid-budget movies either. There's an overall problem in Hollywood, a bigger problem than just superhero movies. And this isn't even everything. This is just what notes I could write now, in this video. There's a much deeper dive to be had on this. There's a much bigger conversation to have on this. And the bigger thing about this is that the $1 billion mark, that number that people keep bringing up, is not a metric for success. The return on investment is how much money is the studio making in contrast to how much they've spent. That's it. That's the only metric that matters. If a movie makes like 50 to 100% ROI and they don't meet $1 billion, the studio doesn't care about the $1 billion number because they've already been well into the positive on their return on investment. If you hear these guys mention things like adjusted for inflation without taking into account the production budget or anything like that, if you hear must meet $1 billion, diminishing returns, all of these are things that are so surface level, only the laziest people on the internet would talk about it like it's some sort of determining factor. She sat down with her notepad and she thought she cooked with this, and you didn't. You put everything in your pan, you set it on the stovetop, and you never turn your stovetop on.